Hello, my name is Alice Moundafie. I work for the Mobile Evaluation Team. I'm also co-chair of the Cultural Competency Resource Committee, part of the subcommittee for the African American portion.
And I'm Ebony King, and I'm a recovery specialist over at Access and Assessment Center for Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, and as well co chair for the CCRC Cultural Competence Resource Committee's African American or Black, I like to say, subcommittee.
I think it's important to recognize because, for one, I think there is an importance and there's a push for um, recognizing that there are different mental health needs. So I relish in the moment of celebrating this because I would say I've been in this field for a little over 20 years. And just to see the changes that has been made as far as even just reducing stigma with mental illness. And now we're actually specifying actual people of color because there's a few things that we know about that group. Makes it even more interesting and make me want to um, celebrate it and bring about more awareness.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the history is so thick, and we all know the history. The history is so thick that there's no way that we've moved forward in generations and come to this point and aren't still scarred, aren't still damaged, aren't still suffering, aren't still being re-traumatized over and over. Just in my lifetime, the things that I've been told from, my mother, my grandmother, previous individuals, it's it's a rough road then, and it's a rough road now. And so I think that the things that we experience in society today are just unique to our culture. They're unique to our own thread. And the stigma associated, the distrust, the stigma associated, it makes it really hard for us to recognize that we need the help, or to even recognize that there is help, or to even associate what the help is for. We don't really understand. I talk to a lot of black folks. I talk to a lot of black folks, and a lot of the time they feel like either you're sane or you're insane, and there is no in between. They think it's black and white, there's no gray area. But truth is that there's plenty of gray areas. So the education is important. It's important to educate the community on what mental health is, because they feel like, no, I'm just kind of having this and that going on. And so I'm not talking to myself, so I'm okay. But there are so many different things that you can experience on the spectrum of mental health, mental illness, that that you could get help for. So I think that a lot of us are not even aware of what mental health encompasses. A lot of us don't trust the organizations that are even, there and available for us for the help, and for good reason, I think. So I think it's important for those reasons.
I would say up until probably probably around 2008 that I became aware of her, but going back her specifically, but going back to like the late 80s, early 90s, I her daughter um, is an actress, and so I used to follow her daughter, and I used to think, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, very talented, and she was on a number of sitcoms at that time. There was a big push for a lot of black sitcoms. So what had changed was I had noticed I hadn't seen her, and I'm like, what happened to her? Because she was kind of one of my favorites to watch, and then kind of researched it later that oh, she suffers from mental illness, and then so that's kind of how it fell into my lap, and then found out a little bit more about her mom and her efforts and what she was doing for her daughter, her being an author, and then her actually starting her own NAMI organization, not starting, but have her own chapter in South Central in Inglewood areas where urban areas, I guess you can say, and really pushed about this topic of mental illness and how it affects our people of color. So that was how I was introduced to her, and so then I followed some social media, and then unfortunately her timely death. And so that's how I got to know, who she was.
So I looked her up, and then I found out her daughter is Maya Campbell. Again, beautiful, amazing actress, seemed flawless, personality, beautiful. I put people in colors. She's a yellow, and that's always a bright, shining personality to me. And like Alice said, I hadn't seen her in a while, but I didn't really think about not seeing her. What I did is I saw something on social media where she was substance abusing, homeless, completely different person, 100% turnaround. I wouldn't have even known it was her. I didn't believe it. I looked her up, I had to figure it out. And so, what it did let me know about her mother, Miss Campbell, was that her work is not, you do work, and you either do work or you do life work, and there's a difference. Some folks are going to come and they're going to do what they've been asked to do, and they'll do it to the best of their ability. But when you're going to get the best outcomes, and when you're going to have somebody who is pushing from their heart for something, that's life work.
Some of the things I think that are very distinct to I think BIPOC community as a whole, as far as mental health. Obviously, the stigma is there. Racism. Um, there are language and cultural differences. I think that makes us different and unique. Um, I I remember me and Ebony actually we do a training with law enforcement, and I remember us going over some of the things that we teach our children. And I remember one of the deputies had raised his hand and he said, "You know, what you guys say and what you teach your children is really no different than what I teach my daughter. So why what's the significance? Why is it different?" And I think our answer was, you know, the historical traumas.
Mm-hmm.
It's different from when my daughter walks into a store versus your daughter who walks through the store. And this guy just happened to be blonde hair, blue eyes, but we'll just use that as an example. And how they're perceived when they walk in the store.
Dr. DeGroy, she speaks about post traumatic slave syndrome because, a lot of folks feel like, hey, we're living right now and that was then, and you do not, you didn't, that experience didn't come forward. But I'm going to tell you that the behaviors, the normalized behaviors, I mean, if you think about, just like Dr. DeGroy said, if you think about slavery, there was never once a point where these folks received the therapy that they needed. And we can be clear that they definitely experienced trauma. We can be clear that a lot of them walked away with from that. Probably the majority walked away with PTSD. And so moving forward, you're free now, and are things changing? Are things getting a whole lot better? No, not even. All the way till now, not even, a little bit, but we haven't made a lot of good ground, in my opinion. And so it's re-traumatization continuously. And so we have these behaviors that we experience when we are victims of PTSD that we experience, and then we pass on to our children, and it's in the home, and these behaviors are normalized. Heightened aggression from, my PTSD because I was a slave, 2 3 years ago, but I've been free for 2 3 years. I'm yelling and screaming. I can't sleep. I'm staying up. Maybe I've started substance abusing. Meanwhile, my children, they are witnessing this, they are experiencing this, and so their behaviors, those are normalized. So then move forward, they have children, they have grandchildren, these behaviors keep going, they keep going, and so it's present in today. Our elders is what we call them. I think that they they don't believe in counseling, therapy, mental health services, and so I think it's important for the newer generations to teach up and teach back, because like they say, if I'm healing myself now, if I'm working on myself now, then I'm not just healing myself, I'm healing my lineage up and backward. I have aunts who have gone through, uncles, they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they've gone through so many things, but there's never, therapy, counseling is never a conversation. And I work here, and so it's my everyday conversation. And so it's important, I think, for us who are aware of mental health to share that good news and to make sure that everybody gets a piece of it. But my main thing is bringing awareness, because I think we we as a culture, we feel like we've been through so much. If we want to look at us as a whole, we've been through so much that, we can't be weak now. We have to be strong. We have to maintain strength. I was talking earlier today up front about how the Black woman in the urban areas, how we have a more hard exterior, and how we grow up hard. I grew up not smiling. I grew up, thinking that you have to, you might get in a fight with somebody and you're never allowed to just enjoy your femininity, until you grow up, you start working, and then somebody asks, hey, are you mad at me? And it's like, no, I don't even know you, but I have this mug that I've been taught to have in my community. And so, just bringing awareness that we as Black people are people too, and we as Black people, we feel, we hurt, we experience, we love, we laugh, we are creative, we're outgoing, we're intelligent, we're, just like everybody else.
Seeking help is essential as me putting that perfect outfit together on Sunday morning. That's how essential mental health is to our culture. I think we've been taught, you know, put it, leave it there with Jesus, do whatever, but we don't talk about how we feel
Yeah.
and feeling like no one cares. Someone does care. And what was helpful, I would say, is um, having someone, if I were to seek help, having someone that recognize that, looks like that, is able to relate to that. And I think that's one of the reasons why people don't get help, is because coming from all that trauma and that historical trauma, and my PTSD may be even related to something else, or I may suffer from depression for something else or some other trauma, but bringing that extra bag there, and someone understanding that and acknowledging that. And sometimes what happens is that we don't have someone that understands that burden, and so that has to go somewhere else. But there's a disconnect. So I guess my point in saying it is that you do deserve that. Advocacy is essential.
Mm-hmm.
Getting your mind, body, spirit aligned is essential. You deserve it. You
That
have every
part.
right to get it, and we won't stop until you get it. So um, all are welcome. There is no stigma around this. This is just essential as putting on that best dressed hat, essential as feeding yourself every day, is essential as putting gas in that car. That's the way we need to look at this.
Charging that phone.
Charging that phone, being on social media
Yeah.
that we like to do.
Oh yeah.
All of that is just as essential, if not very top priority. So this is basic needs. I mean, we talk about the hierarchy of needs. This is one of your basic life needs, is to get that mental health, that emotional health for you.
Just like you tune in about your physical health. Just like we're going to go get physicals, or if you get sick or if things get bad, you got to go get your physical health checked out. It's just as important, your physical and mental health, and they work together. Your mental health can make your physical health bad, and vice versa.